Hello, class. All right. I'm gonna do the warm up from yesterday because there was a lot of I got a lot of questions about how to do this warm up. Please make sure that you watch the video to this entirety because I'm also gonna go over how to find axis of symmetry, vertex, Y-intercept, and zeros, okay, or your X intercepts. So I need you to watch this whole video. All right, so let's look at this right here. It says the expression, and this is the expression right here, represents the height. So that means all of this is equal to the height. So y is the height, okay? So y is the height of the coconut thrown from a person in a tree to a basket on the ground, okay? X is the number of seconds. Remember I told you most of the time X is going to be time. All right. The first thing they want you to do is to rewrite, make sure you can see that, rewrite the expression to reveal the linear factors. Then they want you to identify the zeros and the intercepts, okay? Zeros and intercepts, synonyms, same thing. It's just all about perspective and the way you write it, okay? I'm gonna show you that in a minute. Of the expression and interpret. That means tell the meaning in regards to the context of this problem. How long did the ball stay in the air? All right. So we're gonna do all of those things. Okay. So the first thing that I'm gonna do for you is I'm gonna rewrite this equation. This is the way you're used to looking at this expression, where of course again your y is going to be the height and your x is going to be seconds. Okay, so when I graph this, on my x-axis is going to be the seconds, okay, and on my y-axis is going to be the height. Okay, when I graph. All right, so first thing I want to do is look for the factors, okay? So I'll get to why they say linear factors here in a minute. So if I'm trying to find the factors, I need to factor this. So when I factor this problem, what I'm going to do, because this trinomial, the A is greater, is not a 1, okay? It's actually less than 1. But it's not a 1, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply -4 and 12 together. So when I multiply those two numbers together, I get a -48. So I'm going to do my factor sum chart. I'm going to factor the -48. And those two factors have to add up to this middle term, which is 8x, or 8. So here, the two factors that I'm going to use in order, when I multiply them together, it gives me a -48, but add to give me 8 is going to be -4 and 12. That worked out that time, didn't it? -4 plus a +12 is equal to 8. So I can use -4 and 12 here when I factor. So what I do is I bring down this first term, that's -4x squared, and I'm going to use these two terms in the middle here. What two numbers can be multiplied? So I'm really just breaking this down. What two numbers can I add together to give me this middle term? Okay, and that's going to be -4 and 12. So it doesn't matter which one I write first. I'm just going to write -4x plus 12x. These two added together will give me this 12. So I'm further just breaking this down. Okay. Now I want to factor by grouping, which means that I'm going to factor the first two terms together and then the last two terms together by using GCF. The GCF, or the greatest common factor between these two terms, is going to be the negative 4x. They both, the highest, or the GCF, the greatest common factor, is going to be negative 4x. Okay? So I add negative 4x. And what's left when I factor it out, here is going to be x. And here is going to be a positive 1. It's positive because when I multiply this negative 4 to what's in the parentheses, here I get this negative 4x squared, and here I get this negative 4x, okay, if I was to multiply it back out. So I know that's right. The GCF between these two terms is going to be a positive 12. So I'm going to put plus 12 here, okay? So when I take out a 12, this is going to give me x, and this is going to give me a plus 1, okay? If I were to multiply this back out, I'm going to get this right here, the 12x plus 12, so I know that's right. Since these two terms right here are being multiplied by the same binomial, I can put these two terms in the parentheses together and have it multiplied by that same term, okay? So that's, in other words, simplifying it. So it doesn't matter which one I want to write first. I could write the x plus 1 first, or I could write the negative 4x plus 12. You're multiplying, or they're being multiplied, so the order doesn't matter when you're multiplying two factors together. This could go first or this. It does not matter. All right. So this right here, these are my linear pairs. Why are they my linear pairs? Because, I'm going to box this in as my, not linear pairs, but linear factors. Factors because when you multiply these binomials together, you're going to get this. Linear because if I was to type this in the calculator and graph it separately, this is y equals to a negative 4x plus 12, and this is y is equal to x plus 1, they would graph a straight line. Both of these individually would graph a straight line. So that's why they call them linear factors, because separately, these two would graph a straight line. That's what the linear factors there mean. So this is A. This is the answer to A. All right, so let's look at B, where it's asking us again to identify your zeros and intercepts, okay? And it says intercept, so I want to go over both the X and the Y-intercept because it didn't say, you know, X-intercept. So let's do B. So we're going to find the X-intercepts first. So to find the X-intercept, or zeros, okay, you're going to take each of these factors and set it equal to 0. So this is going to be a negative 4x plus 12 is equal to 0. And then x plus 1 is equal to 0, okay? All right, so when I do that, to solve here, to get x by itself, I'm going to subtract 12 on both sides. This gives me negative 4x, because this is gone. This gives me negative 12, okay? I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4, and x here gives me a positive 3. Negative divided by negative is a positive, okay? Here, I'm going to subtract 1. This gives me x is equal to a negative 1. So this is where my line, my parabola, my U-shape, I know it's U-shape because of this squared right here. Anytime an equation has an x squared, the highest degree is 2, and there's an x squared term, it's going to graph a U-shape, a parabola, okay? All right, so these are my X-intercepts. My zeros, okay, are written like this, okay? They're written as my x value is 3, my y value is going to be 0, because if it crosses the x-axis, any number that crosses the x-axis has a y value of 0. So these would be my zeros, negative 1. And that's why they say these are my zeros, because it shows that y is equal to 0. This is where it crosses the x-axis. These are my x-intercepts. But they also say zeros because my y is 0. Okay, these are the actual ordered pairs and where it crosses the x-axis. Roots, okay, all they want you to do is just list where it crossed. So you make a little bracket and you say, okay, it crosses, you put the smaller one first most of the time. It crosses at these two places on the x-axis. So these are different ways to look at that. Your y-intercept, your y-intercept of a quadratic equation is going to be where the line crosses the y-axis, okay? So it's easy to tell in an equation, it's always going to be your c, okay? It's always going to be your c, the number that has no variable attached to it. This is c, your constant. So your y-intercept here is a positive because there's a plus sign in front of it. It's a positive 12. So your y-intercept is 12. Okay? Now we want to interpret the meaning of all of this. All right? So here's the meaning. Let's graph our roots first, -1 and 3. Let's go to our graph again so we can interpret the meaning. Remember, x is the seconds, y is the height. Remember, you got a person that is standing in a tree throwing this ball into a basket. So here we got, this is -1, and this is 3. This is where it crosses, the parabola is a U shape, and it crosses at these two places. The U shape is going to be downward because this first number right here is a negative. So you're going to have an upside down or downward U. So that means it's going to go this way. And that makes sense because if you're throwing a ball, the ball has to go up and then come down because of gravity. So you know you're going to get a U that's upside down when you're talking about a ball. All right? And in most real life situations, your U is going to be downward because of gravity. Okay? Because of gravity, in most real world problems, the U shape is going to go downward. All right, so the height of the initial value or the starting amount, the y-intercept is 12, okay? So 12, let's say 12 is right here. So your U goes like this, okay? And I know that it's going to go up from here because this person is in a tree, okay? They're in a tree. It says right here that the person is in a tree and they're throwing the ball. So if they're throwing it, when you throw something, it has to go up and then go down. All right, so that's how I know that the hump is going to go up some more and then go down. All right, so since it's going up some more and then go down, we want to know, what does all these things mean? Well, this Y means that this is the height in which he is in that tree throwing it from. So the ball starts at 12 feet from the ground, okay? Or it didn't say feet, did it? But we're just going to assume that it's 12 feet from the ground. So we got 12 feet from the ground, and when he throws it up, it hits the ground right here. This is where the ball actually hits the ground because the height is 0. Since the height right here is 0, you can only assume that this is where it hits the ground. So if it hits the ground here, the ball was in the air for 3 seconds. So the ball was in the air. Ball in air for 3 seconds. Okay? So this is where the ball. Now look at this over here. This does not make sense as it pertains to the problem because you can't have -1 seconds. So in the problem, the practical domain, the x values that actually make sense are going to be from 0 is going to be greater than 0. Anything that's less than 0 seconds is not going to make sense. So here, the part that we need to be reading is from 0 on. Okay, this is your practical domain. So this answer right here doesn't make sense as it pertains to the problem. All right, so we've answered all of our questions, the interpretation, and the and how long the ball was in the air. This is the interpretation, and this is how long the ball was in the air. All right, So now we're going to do this problem because this is what you're doing on your quiz today. You're finding the vertex. In order to find the vertex, you have to find the axis of symmetry, okay? And this problem was on page 35 in your interactive notebook. You did this one. This is number 11, okay? So if you want to follow along or correct number 11, then that's good. And this is how you do your assessment problems for today. That's going to be on page 30. That's going to be on page 37. All right. So first thing that you're going to do in order to find the vertex is you're going to have to find the axis of symmetry. Remember, your axis of symmetry is the line that cuts the parabola in half. So the first thing we're going to label is our A, our B, and our C of a quadratic function. Our A is attached to the x squared term, which is 3. Our B is attached to the x term, which is a negative 54. And our C is a constant, or the number that has no variable attached to it, which is 241. All right. Now, which, by the way, is also our Y-intercept. Okay. C is always going to be your Y-intercept. That's your starting amount. That's where the line or the parabola is going to cross the Y-axis. Okay, so we're going to use the axis of symmetry formula to find the vertex. Your axis of symmetry, I'm going to abbreviate AOS. You see that abbreviation a lot, axis of symmetry, is always x is equal to, because a parabola is either upward U or downward U. And with either an upward U or a downward U, the line that splits the parabola in half is going to go through the x-axis. Okay, it's going to go through the x-axis because it is a vertical line. So your axis of symmetry is always going to be x. And for your minimum or maximum, your vertex, for your vertex, this x value for this this x value is the axis of symmetry. Okay, this x value is the axis of symmetry for either this value, which happens to be the smallest value on this U. So upward parabolas have minimum values for vertex. Downward parabolas have maximum value for a vertex. So we're going to use the formula, which is going to be negative b divided by a 2a. All right, so when we do this, we're going to take and substitute b, which is a negative 54. So keep in mind, there's already a negative here, and we're just going to substitute negative 54 in for b. So that gives you a negative 54. Okay. Then we have 2 times a, which is 3. Okay. So then what this gives us, x is equal to, this is a positive 54 divided by 6. Okay. And so this gives me an x value of 9. So x here is equal to 9. So our axis of symmetry, the line that cuts this parabola in half, is going to go through the x-axis at 9. So now we have the x value of our vertex. Well, I could have left it. We need to find the y value of our vertex. And remember again, since a is a positive number, this, what am I doing? You know, guys, you know I'm not the greatest speller. This is a positive, so our our vertex is going to be the minimum, okay? All right, so it's going to be min. All right, so in order to find the y value of your vertex, you're going to take your equation and plug in 9 for x. So this is going to be, y is going to equal 3. I'm going to go ahead and substitute x. The x is 9, so this is going to be 9. You're going to square it. Then you have minus 54 times 9 plus 2 41. Okay, 241. All right, so when you do all of that, you use your order of operations, or to make this go by just a little bit faster, I type this in my calculator. I type all of this in my calculator, and I am going to get a negative 2. Okay. All right. So my vertex is going to be 9 and -2. Minimum value. My vertex is the minimum. The smallest value on that U. The bottom part, the smallest value on that U. Okay? All right. So now I want to find, what else? I found the vertex, found the Y-Intercept. I think that is, yeah, that is everything. All right. So if you have any questions about anything, remember to hit me up on Remind and let me know that you have more questions. Okay, guys, I love you, and have a really good day, okay?